This story is almost 11 years old. I used to live in a small village that was settled on the edge of a bigger village. In the beginning, it was just a cluster of a few houses. Slowly, it kept expanding. But between our village and the bigger one, there was a large graveyard. In that bigger village, we could find everything: flour, lentils, oil, vegetables, even a needle and thread. The medical store was also there. That's why we often went back and forth during the day. As time passed, that bigger village turned into a small town. Perhaps you even know its name. That night, we had finished dinner a little earlier than usual. The food was being cleared away when my mother placed her hand on her stomach and softly said, "Son, I feel a light pain." I quickly gave her some water. After a while, I also gave her warm water. But the pain started to grow stronger, and her voice and face both began to tremble. The house filled with that kind of silence, where even the sound of putting down dishes could be heard clearly. There was no other way left. I thought I should go to the medical store and get some medicine for the pain. The clock on the wall showed almost 10. At that time, most of the shops would already be closing, and the man at the medical store didn't usually stay late either. I wore my shoes, placed a shawl over my shoulder, and quietly opened the door to step outside. The lane was filled with the night breeze moving slowly. Somewhere far away, a dog barked once, and then fell silent. The moon wasn't out. Only a faint light scattered here and there in the sky, and in the distance towards the bigger village, a few yellow lamps shone faintly, looking like thin streams of milk. I quickened my steps. On the way came the fields first, then a slight slope, after which the graveyard's wall began. I had known this path since childhood. The wall was made of bricks. In many places, the old bricks jutted out, and if you touched them, a sandy dust would stick to your fingers. On top of the wall was a tangled thorny bush where last year's dry branches were still stuck.
Walking along the wall, I could see on the left side the raw mounds of graves. Some had dry flowers. Some gave off the fresh, earthy fragrance of newly plastered mud. And on a few headstones, there was a faint white gleam. The path was so familiar that my feet kept moving on their own. I took a small torch out of my pocket. Its beams stretched like a long line crawling on the ground, sometimes pausing on blades of grass, sometimes glinting on tiny pebbles. When the breeze blew, the leaves of the nearby peepal tree rustled together, as if someone was whispering softly. Whenever I walked through this spot, I tried to keep my breath steady. At the point where the graveyard wall was broken, the shadows of the trees inside spilled onto the road. With no light around, those shadows seemed to grow and shrink on their own. I kept walking, my only worry being that the store might close. Soon I reached the turn in the wall, from where the bigger village became visible. Here, the road turned a little paved, and after that, the first lane of the village began. I quickened my pace. To reach the medical store, one had to pass through a small square. I crossed it and entered the narrow lane. The echo of my footsteps grew louder there. I straightened my breath, my heartbeat was normal, and the only thought in my mind was to quickly get the medicine and return home. When I turned at the last corner of the lane, a faint white glow touched my eyes. It was the same light I always recognized from a distance. Behind the glass window of the medical store, a bulb was still glowing, and its light filtered through the bottles on the counter, making them shine like tiny dots. I slowed my steps, stopped in front of the door, and felt the faint coldness of the glass near my hand. I had reached the medical store. I gently pushed the glass door open. Behind the counter stood Brother Hamid, wearing a white salwar kameez, his hair slightly more untidy than usual, as if he was just about to close the shop. I explained the situation. "Mother has stomach pain. Please give me some light medicine quickly." He reached under the glass showcase and pulled out a small box. Then he placed the medicine inside an old plastic bag and kept it in front of me. The smell of plastic mixed with the sharp odor of medicine. I took out some money from my pocket and placed it on the counter. Picking up the bag, I opened the door and stepped outside. Now, on the way back, I had to pass by the graveyard again. The lanes of the village, which seemed so lively during the day, felt hollow and empty at night. After crossing the square, when I turned towards a road leading to the graveyard, a breeze brushed past. It wasn't cold, but damp, like there was water somewhere nearby, or the freshness of rain still lingered in the air. From a distance, the shadows of the graveyard wall seemed to crawl onto the road. I pulled out my torch again and shone the light ahead. The beam stretched along the ground, but as the wall came closer, the line of light seemed to shrink, as if pressed down by some unseen weight. At the first turn along the wall, the mounds of graves inside became visible. The path was calm, yet within the silence, a strange faint rustling joined in, like dry leaves rubbing against each other on their own. I shifted the torch slightly to the left. By the wall, a dry bush was shaking, but the wind wasn't strong enough to move it like that. I paused for a moment, trying to listen carefully. The sound stopped, straightening my shoulders, as if giving myself the signal that everything was fine. I continued walking. Ahead stood the neem tree, under which the shadows always felt a little denser. I quickened my pace. In front of me was the spot where the wall was broken, giving a clearer view inside the graveyard. The beam of the torch had just touched the corner of the wall when suddenly I heard a faint whispering sound. I froze. The voice was so soft that I couldn't make out the words, just something between breathing and speaking. There was silence. I held my breath, focused hard, but the sound disappeared again. My feet began to move forward on their own. I was just about to turn the corner of the wall, from where the straight path to our village became visible. Reaching that spot, a thought struck me. What if something was behind me? I should at least look once. I turned around. The road behind was just as deserted. I faced forward again and slowly continued walking. Suddenly, completely suddenly, the same whisper returned to my ears. This time, a little clearer, as if someone had softly spoken my name while holding their breath. I froze. The torch in my hand trembled slightly. I instantly turned the beam to the left. Inside the graveyard, close to the wall, a woman was standing, wrapped in a black shawl, her head lowered. I thought maybe it was some village woman who had come here for some reason. But the moment I decided to step closer, she moved her head. Slowly, she lifted her face. The light touched her features, and I forgot to blink. That was no human face. Her eyes glowed as though a piece of burning metal was inside them. Her lips were pulled back, revealing large teeth covered with a layer of dark red. Where her nose should have been, there was only a black void of terror. And her skin, it looked as if it had been burnt and then soaked in water. My feet slipped 1 inch backward on their own. Her lips began to move, but the sound came as if it was rising from deep inside the graves. Heavy, hollow. The woman didn't take a single step forward, but the back of her clothes moved as though they were twisting in the wind. Then I noticed her shadow was not falling on the ground. A cold shiver shot through my body. Suddenly, she took 1 step forward. The ground made no sound beneath her feet. Only a long, hiss-like breath passed right beside my ear. Without thinking, I stepped back. But my foot slipped on the gravel, and I fell to my knees with the torch in my hand. The glass shattered, and the light went out. Darkness. Such deep darkness that I couldn't even see my own fingers. Near my ears, I began to hear the sound of footsteps. But they weren't coming from the ground. They were coming from the air around me. I tried to steady my heart, and then, groping in the dark, I rushed forward toward the road. While passing through the graves, I don't know how many times I stumbled against some corner, some stone, or some bush. But I didn't stop. Moments later, the wall of the graveyard ended, and I reached the road with hurried steps. Yet, even then, a faint hiss still followed me from behind. But I didn't dare turn around. I just kept walking, then running. When I finally saw the light from the first house of the village, I didn't slow down. I went straight home, shut the door, latched it from inside, and collapsed onto the cot. My heart was pounding, so fast it felt like it would burst out of my chest. I handed the bag of medicine to my mother. She asked, "Why are you breathing like this?" I replied, "I just came back quickly, that's all." That night, I didn't say a single word about what I had seen. Not to my mother, not to anyone. I kept thinking, if I told people, they would either laugh at me or ask why I was there alone. Even today, whenever I pass by that graveyard, I lower my eyes. I never look at it, neither in the day nor at night. Some things, once seen, can never be forgotten for a lifetime. If just by hearing this story you felt a shiver run through your body, then imagine, what must it have been like for me to actually see it with my own eyes? They say some doors are better left closed. And that night, I closed that door forever. If you are listening to this story and sitting alone, just turn around once. Sometimes, someone is silently watching you. We'll meet again in the next story. We work from the heart to bring each one to you. If you like this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your one like and share is our greatest encouragement.